J.R. Henry is his daughter, Beth Henry.
Hello, good morning. My name is Beth Henry. Today I have the privilege of introducing my dad, J.R. Henry, on behalf of my brother Michael and my sister Jennifer. For us, growing up with a dad that had a job in emergency medical services was always something to be proud of. And it also didn't hurt that it earned us some major cool points with our friends. He had a car with red lights and sirens, and we got to ride in parades and wave from the back seat. He would come into our classes at school and talk about what he did, demonstrate CPR, and even let us tour the ambulances. Cool points aside, the amount of pride in those moments are almost indescribable. The importance of what he did every day was never lost on us. And we always admired the fact that he chose this as his career and was so dedicated to it. It was always so much more than a job to him. It was about dedicating his life to helping people. He started as a volunteer firefighter and an EMT and then became a paramedic. From there, he went on to manage 2 ambulance services over his over 40-year career. In addition, he started a consulting firm to help a wider range of people with his expertise and knowledge. His dedication to service also extends outside of emergency medical services. He started as a councilman for Westview Borough and eventually transitioned to become the mayor, which he still does today. He also serves as a vice chairperson for Westview Water Authority. We know a lot of you in this room have probably met our dad somewhere along the way. We're really used to that. And if you know him, you know that he is humble, dedicated, and has a great sense of humor. He's knowledgeable on many things and is just an all-around great person. We revel in the stories of those that say he was their mentor or helped them somewhere along the way, but most importantly, that he is their friend. We like to think that he has instilled those qualities in the 3 of us, as well as his 4 grandchildren. And we are so incredibly proud to be here today to support him as he receives this well-deserved award. He has always been a legend in our eyes, and today we are honored to share that recognition with all of you. Without further ado, I introduce to you our dad, J.R. Henry.
Wow, thank you, Beth. That's a tough act to follow there. It's truly humbling to be up here, I have to tell you. I know a lot of people in this room that certainly deserve recognition, and I have to tell you that I never considered myself a legend. But in preparing for this, I did take a couple notes, and I wanted to start off by asking myself, what really makes a person a legend? You know, that comes different definitions in most people's minds. So I looked it up, and Webster says that a legend is a notable person whose deeds and exploits are much talked about in his or her own time. And I have to tell you, in talking with all the other honorees from last year and this year, none of us ever considered ourselves a legend. So we really are humbled by this recognition. Basically, what we were asked to do today is share with you some stories, and I could probably be here for 5 days telling you all the stories about some people in this room. But I'm limited to that 18 minutes before I get yanked off the stage. So let me start by telling you a few stories and accolades or accomplishments that I feel proud of in my career. So where do you start? Well, obviously you start in the beginning. Many of you probably know, if you're from Western Pennsylvania, there was an amusement park, not Kennywood, but Westview Park. And many of our grandparents and parents met there throughout the years, and it was a great amusement park in the North Hills of Pittsburgh. So in my teens, I lived right behind Westview Park, and I began working there when I was age 13. And I worked there for 6 years, actually, some of it full-time while I was going to school. But during that time, my love of emergency services began and helping people. As our chief of police here today, Bruce Fromlech, remembers, we used to have no ambulance service in Westview Borough or Ross Township. It basically was Brant Funeral Home that would come with their funeral home ambulance, pick you up and decide whether they're going to take you to the funeral home or take you to the hospital. Sometimes the funeral home won because of finances. But the police department back in the day, just like we had in many suburban communities around Pittsburgh, they had a low-top station wagon with a stretcher in the back, with a single officer that would come and get you when it was an aided case. That's what they used to call EMS calls, aided cases. So when I was working at Westview Park, especially during the wintertime, there wasn't a lot to do. So they'd said, JR, if you hear us go to an aided case on the scanner, come and help us, because we need help carrying the patient. And sometimes they would even say, hey, get in the back, hold this oxygen mask on the patient while we drive as fast as we can to Suburban General Hospital. This is before trauma centers, folks. There was no such thing as trauma centers back then. That's how old I am. But that really began to develop really the passion that I had for helping other people. And it grew from there. In 1975, as Beth mentioned, I joined the Westview Volunteer Fire Department as a 18-year-old rookie with my future father-in-law, who was really my first mentor. And then in 1977, after I had some fire training, I responded to a call in my neighborhood that was on Ann Arbor Avenue by Highland Country Club, if you're familiar with that area. And it was an early morning fire, and I got there with the police chief, and we heard this lady screaming. And we looked on the porch as we entered, and there was this lady running around the house, literally screaming. Unfortunately, she had caught her negligee on fire. And she had sustained third-degree burns, and we were able to put out the fire, put her in the back of the police car, and again, I held oxygen on her all the way to Suburban General Hospital. Needless to say, back then, with no care and no advanced burn care or trauma care, she passed away. And it really was upsetting to me because I had risked my life to go into this fire to help her and rescue her, and we had no way to treat her. So back then, that was 1977, McCandless Franklin Park had just formed an ambulance service. The Valley Ambulance Authority had formed a few years before. So we got the idea that some members of the fire department and the local politicians would get together and see if we could form an ambulance service. And what happened next, obviously, was the formation of Ross Westview EMS in 1978. And I became one of the original volunteers there. But very quickly, some things changed at Ross Westview, and they needed new leadership. And so who did they come to? Me. Why? I have no idea. I was on the board of directors. I was an EMT at the time. I didn't have a lot of administrative experience, but they asked me if I would take over the organization. So at the time, I was working for the Westview Water Authority, going to school, had the job of a lifetime, could stay there the rest of my life, and I went to one of my other mentors, Dan Doherty, who used to be the Westview Council president, and I said, could I get a leave of absence to maybe go and help this community organization out for 6 months? That's all I need is 6 months. And he said, no problem. Well, I'm still on that leave of absence. I never went back. But very quickly, as I told you, I didn't really know much about EMS. I just had this vocation for helping people. So I called up this guy that some of you might remember at the city of Pittsburgh, and his name was Glenn Cannon. And I have to tell you, he took me under his wing and showed me more things about EMS than I could even imagine. And he also introduced me to another one of my mentors, which was Jerry Esposito from Punxsutawney Ambulance and then Citizens Ambulance Service. Again, Jerry took a liking to me, and every week or so when he would travel in from Indiana to go to the University of Pittsburgh, he would stop in and see me, and we'd have lunch, and again, taught me a lot of things. But the thing he introduced me to, which really helped foster my career, was this thing called third-party billing. Anybody ever heard of third-party billing? It's now called revenue cycle management and a variety of things. But back then, very few ambulance services were billing. And we needed money. We needed money to help start ambulance services because most of us were volunteers, even though we weren't paying people. I was one of the only paid people at Ross Westview for the first 6 years. But we needed to buy equipment and training and a variety of things, and we didn't have any community funding. So it was really a great windfall for us to generate this money through billing. Well, that quickly turned into one person asking me, hey, what's this third-party billing all about? So I began doing education and seminars for free for the first couple years until I said, now this is kind of stupid. I'm generating millions of dollars for EMS organizations, and I'm doing it for free. Well, again, part of my vocation, and I really wanted to help people. But I formed a consulting company in 1982 and began doing seminars all across Pennsylvania. And that really helped foster, again, my love of EMS and helping other people. So now I'm going to go to the crazy 80s, I call it. I got married in 1979, and after a year of marriage, my son Michael was born. Followed by Jennifer in 1982 and Beth in 1985. And working, as they said, many hours, and they were very kind to me because I missed a lot of events growing up while they were growing up. I tried to do my best, but I was on the road a lot, and I was in the ambulance a lot. At one point, I had to go back and count how many patients I took care of during that period, and actually it was over 25,000 patients. And I'm very proud of that, even though I'm really not known for my clinical side, more my administrative side. But in the early days, in the crazy 80s, I was working a lot of hours taking care of patients. And I have to also give a shout out to my ex-wife, Karen, who really during that time, during my absence, really helped raise the kids. And as you saw, one of them today has grown up to be a wonderful person. And I'm so proud of my children. Really, and a lot of compliments go to my ex-wife. Thank you. During that time, too, I also became involved with Allegheny County EMS Council, serving in a variety of positions and really networking and developing really lifelong friendships, as Beth pointed out, with many of you in this room. And also PEHSC and AAP in its early stages in helping recruit members to AAP from all across the country. And really the great work that these organizations have done advocating for EMS during the last 40 years has been fabulous. And I've been very, again, humbled to be part of some of that. Some of you might not know that I also took another leave of absence from Ross Westview in 1985. And just before my daughter was born, I actually took over Harrisburg River Rescue. The city was in a great deal of trouble. Their EMS system was falling apart. So they asked me to come in for 6 months and try to redo River Rescue. And I was fairly successful in putting that organization back together and had a good team of people when I left 6 months later. But I was certainly glad to come back home and retake over my role as chief of Ross Westview EMS. But during that period in Harrisburg, I lived with 6 legislators. So I would commute back and forth in Pittsburgh Monday through Thursday, come back for the weekends. But during that time, I really learned the backside of the legislative process. When you live with 6 legislators, you see the real part of that politics and how it works. So during that period, we were all advocating PEHSC, AAP, Allegheny County EMS Council. We were all advocating for a new EMS Act because, believe it or not, before 1985, there was no standards or regulations for ambulance services in Pennsylvania. So we worked very diligently with that legislative process, and through the efforts of a lot of people in this room and across the Commonwealth, we were able to get the first EMS Act passed, and that was Act 45, if some of you veterans in the room remember Act 45. So it wasn't the best act, but at least we had minimum standards where we could have continuing education and training standards and vehicle standards. So it was a real milestone back in the day. Also during that time in the crazy 80s, we had some of our first mass casualty incidents in Allegheny County. Most notably, I'll tell you a story about what happened in 1987 when there was a train derailment in Bloomfield. I know a lot of the city guys remember that. And there wasn't a lot of patience during that time when this hazardous materials train derailed in Bloomfield. But I got a phone call from Dan Fitzhenry, who was the EMS coordinator in the 80s for Allegheny County. And he said, JR, we need your help in the city. I said, the city never calls for help. Back then, they never called for help. He said, no, well, there's not a lot of patience, but we have about 4,000 people that we're going to evacuate from Bloomfield, and we're going to send them to the Civic Arena. So what I need you to do is go commandeer the Civic Arena. And he said, I'm sending Bill Plunkett to help you. So we drive down in uniform, knock on the door, Civic Arena. This maintenance guy comes, can I help you? I said, well, yeah, we're here to commandeer your building. We're going to have thousands of people coming here by bus, by walking, by shuttle, and they're probably going to be here for a couple days. And actually, that's what happened. We had not a clue what we were doing. We had no training on sheltering or any of those things, how to take care of people and pets and all the diapers and things that you had to order during a mass casualty evacuation was something we learned on the fly. And so we had a really, really good time doing that. Fortunately, there was no people killed during that incident, and we didn't kill anybody. So that was a good thing. There was a lot of other disasters, and a lot of people don't remember some of these disasters that happened in Allegheny County, but we were involved with the McKeesport train derailment, the Regatta incident that happened in 1988, the Etna floods, some of you might remember. When Knox Walk was the Allegheny County EMS coordinator, he called me again and said, JR, we need your help. We're going to have to go up and help the people in Etna and Shaler and those areas that needed. So we developed these friendships and on-the-fly relationships where they knew that we could call each other and count on each other to respond in times of disaster. So there's a lot of good memories in some of these disastrous times for me. As Beth said, I also became involved in the 80s in politics, and my mentor, Dan Doherty, asked me to run for council. And most of the council people in Westview were all over the age of 70, and I happened to be about 35 years old then. And so he asked me to become the youngest council member in Westview, and 36 years later, I'm still here and now performing the duties as mayor. So I've had a lot of good times working together and, again, fostering my vocation of helping people in the local community. So then comes the stressful 80s. A lot of the stresses that you're experiencing now in this industry, the loss of volunteers, the financial strain, the recruitment and retention problems, we lost a lot of good volunteers from the 70s to the 90s. And it's created a long-lasting stress on our system that still exists today. But that has increased the number of requests I had for seminars and consultations to help people and help do retention, recruitment, third-party billing, revenue cycle management, all those things. And a couple people that you might recognize, Pat Shoup and Mike Fitzgibbons. Pat Shoup's from the borough of Lewistown, and we were able to go into his organization and really help turn around some disastrous things that were going there, and they become a very good regional EMS system. Same thing with Mike Fitzgibbons, who I need to give a shout out. It's a good friend in Lancaster. Started out as a small community ambulance service doing 700 calls, and when they most recently were absorbed by Penn State Hershey, they were doing about 40,000 calls. So we've been able to really help, again, and foster great networking and great relationships with people during my career. So then in 1999, the consulting was just absolutely going crazy, so I decided to leave Ross Westview EMS to pursue consulting full-time. And just about the same time I left, this gentleman over here on the left, Steve Worth, a longtime friend, was forming PWW with Doug Wolfberg and Jim Page. And so in 2002, Steve contacted me and said, look, JR, we have some great opportunities going on across the country. How would you like to come join us as a managing consultant? And that was a big move, commuting back and forth to Harrisburg and traveling all across the country. But Steve, you gave me a lot of great opportunities to work and sort of spread the wealth across the Commonwealth and the United States, and I'll be forever in your debt for that, but thank you. Also, during that period, I was also asked to be the assistant commander to the response to Hurricane Rita. Now, a lot of people don't remember Hurricane Rita because that was about a month after Tom McElree had responded and been the task force commander going to Louisiana for Hurricane Katrina. And obviously that was one of the most devastating ones. But about a month later, there was another hurricane called Rita, and they thought on top of the damage for Katrina, there was going to be a lot more damage. So I was asked by the Commonwealth Department of Health to be the assistant commander and take 50 ambulances down to Louisiana. And that was certainly an experience that I'll remember the rest of my life. Even though we didn't have the devastation that was left by Katrina, we still were able to help a lot of people. So then finally, in my EMS career in 2006, I was recruited by Valley Ambulance Authority to come and help them. Again, they had some financial and some personnel issues at the time, and working together with people like Scott Miller, who's here today, and some other folks at Valley, we were able to completely reshape Valley and rebuild them to a great EMS organization that they are today. And I also have to give a shout out to somebody that many of you know in the room, which is Mel Muslin. Mel Muslin was my assistant at Valley for many years, and I have to tell you that Mel's a unique individual, but I got to tell you, he's a hardworking dude and always was very supportive and really helped us reshape Valley. So thanks to Mel for all of his help. So the last couple of decades have been a lot of major milestones for me, including, as my children said, the birth of my grandchildren, and it's truly been a pleasure to help my son Michael launch public safety marketing 20 years ago already. It's hard to believe how time flies, but it's been a great opportunity to work with my son and have him be part of this vocation of me helping other folks. So right now there's a lot of major changes that are going on in the industry, and I want to thank everyone here for all their support, and also I have to give a shout out to my current partner, Gigi Laymeyer, who I've been with for the last 15 years. She's been a great deal of love and support for me during that period, and I certainly want to give her the recognition that she deserves. So looking back on my professional career, folks, I have to tell you it's been very humbling, especially for your recognition today, but I've been very blessed to help other people and really answer my calling. There's so many people, including many in this room, that I'd like to thank, but as Jesse said, you can never name everybody and you always leave somebody out. But my mentors, all of the members of this inaugural class, the inaugural class and the Legends of 2025, I want to thank them. And I also want to send a thank you out to the more than 2,500 people that have worked with me at Ross Westview and Valley over the years. A lot of people have come and gone, but they've truly made a difference going forward. And the last thing I was asked to do was give a message to new aspiring leaders, like many of you in this room. So my professional advice to you, and my message is to all of you, is to have the courage to tackle the current and future challenges that we face, because just like we did in the early days, sometimes you just don't know what you're doing, but if you have that dedication and that hard work, you figure it out. You have good friends and network with other individuals, and you're able to figure it out and forge new territory. Obviously, patient care always needs to be number one, but you also have to remember that you also need to be taken care of. So take care of yourself as you are dedicating yourself to this business. And at some point, you have to remember to take care of yourself too. So my parting words is, keep in mind that your deeds, your exploits, and your actions now may actually help to put you one day on this stage as a legend. Thank you very much. Thank you.